All right, we are going to go ahead and get started. Welcome, welcome. Thank you for coming. My name is Allison Reed. If I haven't met you already, I'm Senior Director for Digital Learning and Libraries, and I am accompanied by my good friend Lisa Belsha, who is the Director of Digital Resources. We are glad to have you joining us today. I promise my friends we're going to try to film this session because we get quite a few requests for this afterwards, either for folks who missed it.
Am I in the way?
I think is she fine? She's fine. Either for folks who missed it or for folks who want to take it back to show it to folks at their school so they're not the person sharing the message. And so we are doing our very best to try to film that for you today. We promised Chris and Katie that we would try to stay at least on the stage or in front of it. That's going to be really challenging if you've ever been in a session with me before, but I'm going to try. So forgive me for not being out and all mingling, but we're going to do our best to stay up here. So again, welcome. We're really glad you're here. I told you who we are. You don't have to look at those pictures any more than you have to. We can go ahead and move past that. We are focused, obviously, in this session on the Wake Forward focus area of data privacy and technology and infrastructure. I think it's helpful probably for a little bit of context to tell you sort of how digital resources and privacy and the digital resource product library fall under our team. So as I mentioned, I'm over digital learning and libraries, and so Lisa is part of my team, and her whole team covers digital resources. They manage, oh gosh.
Canvas, Google.
Yes.
Canvas, Google, Office 365, Wake Learns, School Messenger, Talking Points, Chromebooks. I'm sure I'm leaving something out. But
Canvas.
I say
Did
Canvas
you already
first.
say Canvas? Yes.
Yep.
Say it again, because it's taking up all our time.
Canvas.
Yeah.
All the
it's taking up all our time.
Nearpod.
Yes. And if you aren't using Nearpod, please use Nearpod so I can keep paying for it for you. So, okay. So one of the things that is really important to understand is what our role is in terms of approving digital resources and making them work. We get questions a lot of the time about, they'll call me and they'll say, hey, Allison, can you tell me if I can do Brain Pop? Or why isn't Brain Pop allowed? Or hey, why don't I have Discovery Ed? Or fill in the blank, right? My guess is you guys have gotten a lot of those questions. So one of the most important things that I want you to know is that we partner with our friends in academics. Though many of you know me, I usually have an instructional opinion. I always have an opinion, but it is not my role to have an instructional curriculum opinion about every piece of content that goes across the district. We have two great friends I want to introduce you to who are with us today, and I'm not necessarily putting them on the spot, but I do need you to understand that this is a partnership. So Michelle Woodson is here. She is a Senior Director for Curriculum Instruction for the district. Michelle and I meet weekly to make sure that we are on the same page. Lauren Acom is here. She is the Director of Online Learning, and she sits under the academics umbrella as well. And so these ladies and our team work together very, very closely to determine what is allowable, what we review from the digital resource product library lens, and what our goal is. We're working towards alignment. So if you are not familiar, go to that next slide for me real quick. Yep. If you're not familiar with policy 3200, 3200 is a policy that talks about curriculum and instruction and what curricular tools we're supposed to be using in the district. I'm beginning with this, and I'll explain this slide in just a second. I'm beginning with this because at the end of the day, we want to make sure that our curriculum is aligned. There are probably 10 to 15 really great upper elementary math manipulative digital resources. There just are, right? There's lots of technology out there. There's probably 15 good ones. We don't need all 15, right? And if we're trying to use all 15, from a tech services standpoint, we've got now 15 different tools to integrate, 15 different tools to make sure are secure, that our data privacy is on point, 15 different tools that the academics folks have to make sure that they understand, know how to use and support, and 15 different tools that all the DLCs are supposed to be experts in, right? So if we narrow to one or two of those tools for that particular thing, a couple things happen. Number one, we have alignment across the district from a curricular standpoint. We'd save a lot of money because we can combine licenses, right? When we have a school, Nearpod is a great example. I joked about it earlier. Nearpod was one of those tools that we had. Raise your hand if you were using either Nearpod or Pear Deck before COVID. Okay. So I had about 60 schools using one of those two tools, and they were paying for individual school licenses, sometimes as much as $7,500 a school. And it was coming out of the school's budget. Y'all, when you added all those up, right, it was an exorbitant amount of money. For just a tiny bit less, I was able to provide it for the entire school system, and it's not coming out of individual school budgets. On top of that, I can integrate it. It's in your portal, right? On top of that, all the DLCs know how to use it. They can come help you use it. It's integrated in. On top of that, we're doing a Canvas rollout, if you haven't heard, right? It's very useful for that. So we can start to integrate tools better when we are intentional about alignment across the board. So that's sort of where we're starting. All right. So we're going to focus this session on three main areas. First of all, I want you to see, I want to give you the why. We're going to talk about a little background of why it is so important that you are following the processes and things that are laid out in DRPL. For those of you who are new to the district and you're going, what is she talking about DRPL? DRPL is our acronym. I think Kevin left, but Kevin started it. Digital Resource Product Library. Okay, that is the library where you go to see what digital resources you can use. It's too many syllables, so we call it DRPL. Rhymes with purple. All right, so DRPL is in your Wake ID portal if you have not already found it. So I want you to see why it is important. The second part of the presentation, we're going to get you to understand how it works as of today and what the processes are. And then the last part is interrupt. And that is where you can look at what your role is in preventing, and we just lost sound. You can look at what your role is. I'll just talk loud while we work on it. You can look at what your role is to keep student data safe. You can look at what your role is to advocate for good digital tools at the school level. So that is sort of our plan. Do you want to introduce? Yes, I was, let me see what's next. Yes, I was going to do that there, but we'll go ahead and do that now. All right, so while he's working on the mic, I want to take just a second and introduce a few other people that were here. As I mentioned, Michelle and Lauren are here from academics. They begin our work. I don't want us to spend a ton of time reviewing tools that are not in alignment curricularly. Academics drives what we use for curriculum, folks. That's the way it should be, right? And so we take our cues, we support academics. That's our role. My role, our role, your role to help us do this is to make sure that everything works and is safe. We have, we're going to answer some questions as we go along today, but I want you to have some context when I talk about the folks that are doing reviews and the folks that are doing this, because I need you to put names to faces and see how big our army is, all right? So if you're on the DRPL Dream Team, please stand up. Y'all, that's it. So Eric Hoth, right? Eric Hoth is our Information Security Officer. I mentioned this morning, he keeps us out of jail and out of the news, okay? When there is an investigation, when kids get in trouble for doing stupid stuff online, Eric and his team have to do the investigation. They work with local law enforcement. They look with the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, and yes, that happens, right? Big stuff. But Eric has to help take a look at every part of the security features for that, in addition to all the other things he does. Patrick Tart is our Canvas administrator. He also runs Wake ID. What other things do you do, Patrick, right? If you've done anything with Canvas, it's Patrick right now. Thank you very much. Okay? I think we're good. Maybe, maybe not. Nope. I'll keep talking, and that way you'll know when it works. Megan Maurer does a ton as well. She's also part of our Canvas leadership. She manages, well, less than normal, but talking points. What am I missing? School Messenger. So these are folks for which this is not their only job. Okay, and I'm not trying to paint a picture of, oh, feel bad for us. But in context of what we're going to talk about today, I just need you to see the size of the team. Okay? All right. So we're going to go on. You want to talk about just the site? On the slides, which I don't think I've linked yet, but I will. They are linked. I should have given you this bit of housekeeping. If you go to that link at the bottom, it's just bit.ly, bit.ly/DRPL22 Convergence. This will take you to our slides. We tried really hard to make sure that in the slide deck, you had links to everything you would need to go back and reference this later. So anything that is underlined in blue like that, you should be able to access. That first link, though, will take you straight to the Digital Resource Product Library. It's the same link that you have in your Wake ID portal, okay? every person, regardless of what your teachers tell you, have this in their portal. Hey, there we are. Thank you. Every teacher in the district every staff member in the district has DRPL in their Wake ID portal. They can't tell you they can't find it. No, it's there for everybody. And Patrick locked it, so you can't even remove it. Okay?
That's good.
Because we got the tools, right? Okay. So you'll notice, if you haven't been there in a while, when you click on that link, it actually takes you to a splash page now, and it's got some cool little icons that give you links to a document that explain it. It explains the process. It identifies what every single status means. We're going to go through some of those today. Explains it. Don't feel like, and I even tell our help desk folks this, y'all, so this is not, I'm not trying to talk down at all. You don't have to be the expert at all of this. We tried to build this site so that you could point your staff to it and they could learn on their own, right? So that they could go to the source, so that you are not the bad guy if the tool they want is not allowed, okay? We're trying to kind of have your back in this way. So please use it like that. So then there's on the top right there, if you're looking at it, it'll say search DRPL, and that takes you to the part you're used to seeing. Type in any application and it will pull it up, all right? So I told you we would talk about why this oversight is important. Why can't you just let us alone and let us have nice things? Why are you so mean, and why are you denying all of the tools my teacher wants? But they like it. You have no idea how many vendors we have say to us, yeah, but your teachers love it. Your teachers love it. And I'm like, I don't care. It's not safe. You're selling our kids' identities. But y'all, one of your favorites who will go unnamed was geolocating our kids. Thank you for the gasp. That was my reaction. But the vendor said to me, but your teachers love it. You're geolocating our kids. Does anybody not know what that is, so I can explain it to you? They're tracking their geography. We had a kid about 2 years ago, a little girl in the middle part of the state, I want to say it was from Lexington, was abducted, and the abductor found her by following her Chromebook because there was a program she was using, and that's how he knew where to go get her. I don't care how much your teachers love it. I'm not putting our kids in danger, right? At the sake of a little convenience for the teachers, when there are other really good, really safe tools that do the same thing, right? So, having said all that, let's talk about some bad stuff. It's my favorite. Okay. How many of you saw when we talked about DRPL at AAT Day 2 or 3 years ago? Anybody in that presentation? Remember in that presentation I had a bunch of links to local folks who had gotten hacked? Okay, this is that same slide, except every single one of the links is new. I want you to think on that. Every single one of these links is new because it is happening daily. Y'all, the number of attacks we ward off on a daily basis is in the thousands. Okay? So there is, all of those things are linked there. That first article, if you don't read any other one, it's not if, it is when we will be hacked. The numbers are staggering. K-12 is a soft target, especially during the pandemic, right? All these software vendors, first of all, software companies for ed tech are like rabbits. They're just multiplying in garages places, y'all. They are popping up everywhere, and it's 2 dudes in a garage with no security. No joke, in a lot of cases. And then there were other companies that were started and relatively okay, but with the onset of the demand from the pandemic, lots of these companies scaled and were not prepared to scale and go so big. And guess what suffered? Not the part you see, the part we see. It's their security, right? Their ability to be interoperable within our systems. And so we have a responsibility to check those things. All of these are articles that should be very helpful to you when you speak to your staff. I'm not going to go through all of them today. My intention was to give you tools that you could use when you go back to speak to the folks in your building or your administration. I do want to call out a couple things in that cute little blue bubble there, though. 56% of reported ransomware attacks last year were K-12 organizations. Thoughts on why that might be? Why are bad actors targeting K-12? Yeah, Jill. Sheila.
Because we can't afford the insurance.
Because you can't afford the insurance. I'm going to come back to insurance. Good start. Yep. What else? Why else?
The kids' identities are clean.
Kids' identities are clean. All right. Anything else?
They're easily clickable.
They're easily clickable. Like kids are vulnerable, right? Okay. Any other thoughts? By the way, how many of you are parents, just out of curiosity? Okay, so this is gonna be my, you're gonna hate me for this. Do you know the best identity to steal is a 5-year-old's? Because it's gonna be at least, I don't know, 18 years or so before that 5-year-old's gonna need to apply for credit. They've got like 18 years to use that number and that identity, right? And your child and my children are not gonna know that their credit has been ruined until it is too late. 5-year-olds don't typically have the ability to go check their credit on a yearly basis, but if you are a parent, I'm going to strongly encourage you every year. First of all, you should be checking your own credit every year, but I'm going to strongly encourage you to check your children's credit every single year because theirs is far more lucrative than yours is on the black market. We don't have, I just showed you our staff. We don't have these giant budgets for technology infrastructure security, right? We are one of the only school systems in the state that has an Eric Hoth, a CISO is what that's called, a Chief Information Security Officer, right? In Wake, we are fortunate that we have staff at all. We've got lots of districts in our state and across the country who do not have a team that is able to do this work. And because we don't know better, we being our industry, right? Oh, nobody would steal from the kids, except they will. They will steal from the kids, all right? You mentioned cybersecurity, Sheila. Fun fact, we do have cybersecurity. It is harder and harder every single year to get it, okay? Because bad actors are just rampant, right? And so the insurance companies are losing their shirts. So they don't want to issue insurance to school systems anymore for a lot of the reasons we just mentioned, but they don't want to issue them to a lot of businesses either because it's not good business anymore, right? It's not profitable business. So cyber insurance is very difficult to get. And at the end of the day, it doesn't always cover all of the cost when there is an incident as well. So things for you to think about. Reasons we should do it. That second bullet, I think you can read that for yourself. 51 times more likely than you to be targeted, right? And I don't know about y'all, I love my job, but I need to get paid. If we get hacked, when we get hacked, they're not just stealing your baby's data, honey. They're stealing yours too. And that includes things like your payroll information. In many districts, I won't say most, but in many districts when there is an incident, a cybersecurity incident, payroll shuts down. That means you don't get paid. That would be, I don't know about y'all, that would be a problem for me if we don't get paid. So love my job, gonna need to get paid for it, right? So there's a good why there for everyone. All right, so how do you pick a good digital resource? We have teachers that will go to conferences, and I got to confess to you, when I was in the classroom, I did the same thing. And I would go to a conference, and I would see the coolest new tool, and somebody from another district was using it, and she was getting, of course it was perfect, because you weren't actually there working with her, right? You didn't see the bad parts about the tool. There would be somebody, and this is working well, and they're getting all these gains, and shiny. Ew, it was shiny, and they come back to your school and they want to use this new tool. And you ask them, why do you want to use the new tool? Because so-and-so is using it and she loves it, right? You must begin with why. When you are teaching in a classroom, what should you begin with? Come on, y'all know. What do you begin with when you're planning a lesson?
What's the outcome?
What's the outcome and how do you know? Because of your standards is the word, right? What are the standards you're trying to reach? Your teachers know this because we're doing that training other places. If you begin with the tool, you have it backwards. Those of you who have studied TPACK, T-P-A-C-K, we're not going to go into that today, but understand that, right, that's the piece you start with. You begin with the standard. You begin with the standard, and then you look at the pedagogy, and then which tool helps you do that, right? Not the other way around. We cannot have the tails wagging the dogs all over the district. Because what comes back, I'm going to pick on a tool, and I don't dislike this tool, and yes, it's allowed. Kahoot, right? Kahoot does one thing. It just does one thing, y'all. It's a quizzing tool, right? But we have teachers that will come back and they'll swear it's the greatest thing ever, right? And 4 periods later in a high school, we've Kahooted some kids to death because they Kahooted for 4 hours and it ceases to be engaging, right? But that teacher didn't start with the standard, they started with the tool. Make sense? We got to help our staff get it in the right order, okay? So begin with the end in mind, and the beginning is the standard, right? That's the problem we're trying to solve here. All right, so what are some things we look at when we're looking at a digital resource? Michelle and Lauren, by the way, I'm going to get into this a little bit later. Right now, I know you can't request resources. We're going to talk about that in a minute. But the reason for that is that we have our senior leadership and academics right now are the ones that are telling us what our priorities are, okay? So some of the things that we look at when we're evaluating those priorities are on this list here. Notice what number 1 is, right? We're beginning with the right thing. Any of these things that maybe we encounter issues with slows this process down, okay? And I'm going to try to show you that, or Lisa's going to try to show you that in a second. But we look at all of these things. We begin with curriculum. We're not looking at anything academics does not ask us to look for unless it does fall under my purview. So for example, Nearpod is not a content. It's not a curriculum. It is a curriculum. It's digital curriculum, right? It's a productivity tool. Those sorts of things my office looks at. But if it has to do with social studies or science or math or ELA, right? It's got to come from academics because they own that, right? Okay. All right, so how do we do that? This is what our office looks like on any given day as we're trying to wrestle this. Also, I love Rainn Wilson from The Office. He's one of my favorites. So how do we do this? Where do we start? So I'm going to put up in just a second an image. And what I'm going to ask you guys to do at your table is we're going to talk about your experience with digital resources. All right? Let's go ahead. All right. Love this image. In this image, there are some key players. In this image, you may see vendors, you may see teachers, you may see students, you may see parents, you may see PTA, you might see district office, right? You might see tech services. What I'd like for you to do at your table, we're going to give you about 2 or 3 minutes, I'd like for you to have some discussion, and I would like for you to ID what you see in that picture with those labels. Who is who? Based on your experience with digital resources in this district or other districts if you've been somewhere else. All right, so we're going to give you about 2 minutes to talk at your table, and then we're going to share out a little bit. Tell us what you see. Who are the players here? And if there's one you think of that I didn't name, that's fair game too. I would love to hear from some of these tables. I just heard the funniest thing, or Lisa did. Wait, the kids are getting eaten? So who's willing to share out? Who's willing to share out and tell us who you see? All right, I'm coming. Let me get the mic. All right. Share with us who's who in your discussion here.
Didn't even know we didn't get that far.
That's all right. Just tell us what your thoughts were.
All right, apparently we all came up with the same idea, except we've been told this has never been thought of before. We thought that the pedals were all of our personal information, and the sharks were just coming to chew it up. And then,
Yeah.
I guess that's Rob Lowe.
Uh-huh.
He's our administrator. He's letting us do whatever we want to go ahead. And the teacher's going, it's okay, it's free.
Yeah, it's free. Yes. She's got the shiny top on. Yeah.
Perfect, and I think you guys are in the back on the surf sailor.
Notice we fall down here? Yeah, that's us.
So I think you're knocking off the sharks that.
Oh, okay. Okay, awesome. Thank you. All right, there was another one over here. Somebody want to share?
Oh gosh, this might look, you know you can't trust what comes out of my mouth, right?
That's why I brought you the mic.
So we see Rob Lowe as the teachers.
Okay.
And the chum, that's their students.
Uh-huh.
And they're throwing all their student information out there. And the sharks are the hackers.
Mm-hmm.
And then we said, well, the parents must be the birds hovering and flying above, watching everything. And other teachers along for the ride is a pretty girl.
But you can't forget the kite border.
Oh yeah, the kite border.
What's he represent? Go ahead and tell us.
let Sarah tell
Yeah, Sarah, you tell us.
I thought maybe the kite border was the parent who's just totally oblivious, but maybe it's an admin.
Right?
We don't have any oblivious parents or admin, do we?
No.
All right. One more.
Ours was pretty similar to the others. We did have to tag a name on the border, though. That's Eric.
I love it. I love it.
Taken out by the shark.
All right, last thoughts. So you've seen this. Your identification tells me that your experience with some of this is at least similar, even though maybe from a different perspective than ours. All right, so we're going to go ahead and jump in, and I'm going to hush and let Lisa talk. I know you were wondering if it was ever going to happen, but I'm going to let Lisa walk you through some of the processes and some of the technical parts of a review, and then we will have hopefully time for questions at the end.
Thank you. I can't let this go without saying Rob Lowe is my daughter's graduation speaker. Yeah, just saying. Yep. Allison mentioned that we have actually been reviewing some tools. I know we've told you we can't, but we've actually been reviewing some. Again, they are district-wide. You may also know, if you've been around for a long time, that it, for many, many, many years, was the Wild West. You could use whatever you wanted. Nobody would tell you otherwise. Never even occurred to anyone that there would be a risk. I was a tech contact at a school. I guarantee you I have used some of these things that we find out are horrible. It's just the way things were, back, like I didn't wear a seatbelt when I was growing up. Once you know better, you do better, same kind of thing. So just to give you some numbers, we call it a priority list. Those are the tools that we get from academics. And we currently have 52 priorities that we're working on right now. And I'll explain what that really means when we get to a future slide. Part of the review process is getting the vendor to sign a privacy agreement. That's the DCS, Data Confidentiality Security Agreement. Sometimes the vendor looks at it and says, oh, I don't like that line, and I don't like that line, and I want to add this instead. Well, those, if they're too complicated, they have to go to the attorney. So there's 12 right now sitting with the attorney. That portion of the review can take months because there's back and forth between attorneys. The larger the vendor has, the larger the legal department, the longer it takes to do the negotiation. And we are very upfront with them and say, if you choose to request edits, nobody's buying your tool for a really long time. And they still request them. So those are sitting there. We also have non-instructional tools. This rule applies to everyone. Our department is not allowed to buy anything unless it's in DRPL. Our department. You know the kind of weird things we use? You'd never use them. A kid would never use it. I don't even know how. So we've got 59 of those, and they're everything from like bus repair manuals to database management tools, but those are all non-instructional. And then here's the big bucket, conditionally allowed. That is a temporary status. I'll talk a little bit more about that later, but there are 418 of them. Okay, that's the backlog that we keep saying. 418. Just a few. I've gotten, it's just a number at this point. I'm almost numb to it, but that is not a fun number. So we created conditionally allowed. I like to compare it to library amnesty. Back in the day, they would have days where you could return your books and you wouldn't have to pay the fines. Well, a couple of years ago, when we started really, this was the one positive out of COVID, is people started realizing what kind of digital tools were out there, how many various things were being used, and all that sort of thing. So we started saying, look, we get that, we know you're using it. I can see the logs. Fess up, we'll put it on the list, and we'll give it a temporary status so that you can continue using it until we get a chance to review it. So that number took about 2 years to get to that number. And we have since cut that off. Amnesty was 2 years long. I think that's plenty time. But those are all tools that were already in use. They may have been used by one teacher. They may have been used by a whole school. May have been multiple schools. But that's how we came up with that number, 418. So we get a lot of questions about how long does a review take? Because if you're like me, I'd be sitting there going, oh my God, how long is it going to take them to get through 418 tools? Well, you saw the dream team. We do call ourselves the dream team. But the short answer is it depends. So there's many phases of the review. I have a tracking sheet that looks very similar to this, although I think I have way more columns at this point. And it has to move from left to right, and it has to make it through all the columns. So you'll see on this tracking sheet, some of the squares are orange. That's where it's frozen. It's stuck at that particular point. Other cases, the first one is an example. I sent the vendor our technical questionnaire. That's where I asked them all kinds of questions about how do they do user accounts, how long do they hold on to our data, do you do single sign-on, all those technical types of things. I track when they return it back so that I know that then it's ready to go to the next step. I track whether they've signed our privacy agreement. We will not look at a tool if we don't have the privacy agreement back, because we've had rookie mistakes where we actually started looking at it thinking it wouldn't be a problem, and then the vendor would not sign the agreement at all, and now we've wasted some time. So that is a sticking point there. But we want to move it as fast as possible. I don't like having a list of 418 things. That is not satisfying to me. But I will also say that part of the reason some of the reviews take so long is we try to make them a yes. I could whip through that list and go, nope, 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 nope. But we work with the vendors. So when we find a problem with a tool that we're reviewing, we tell the vendor, okay, this is not okay how you are doing this. It needs to be this way instead. And then they may ask some clarifying questions. I would say more often than not, the vendor is willing to make changes to their product because the things we are telling them are wrong are not wrong just for Wake, they're wrong for everyone. And that takes time. The geolocating, for example, that's just bad. Okay, so I'd say out of all the ones that have taken a really long time, I can only think of one off the top of my head where the vendor just would not budge. But all the other ones, they say, well, can you explain to me why that's important? And we do, and they go, oh, okay, I get it. Sometimes it takes them a few weeks, sometimes it takes them a few months, but at the end of the day, we've made their product safer for all their customers. And then we're able to give a yes and feel like we're using a tool that's going to be safe for our students and our staff and our systems. Because that's the other thing. We've got to stop saying, it's only about student data, it's only about student data, it's only about student data. No, it isn't. It's about all the data. It's also about all our systems. So when this ransomware goes in and I can't get paid, I'm not thinking about my student data at that point. I'm thinking about the paycheck I'm not getting. So you've got to realize that it's really more than the student data. I also hear all the time, oh, but it's free. Y'all, those are the worst of all of them. Because it's actually not free. They're making money by selling your data. You may not be paying anything in dollars, but you're paying with your data. They're using your back-end data to do something. During the review, Eric reads through the privacy agreements and the terms of use and all the things that the vendor says. You would be amazed what they put in writing. They will outright say, we are going to sell your data. They'll say it. Eric is catching those things for us. I can't stand to read them. He reads them all, and they are very lawyery, but it says it. I mean, we're not making it up.
Can I say, yeah, I was going to say one thing. So how many of you heard about LAUSD going down maybe last month? Does anybody remember the Target breach about 4 or 5 years ago where they lost like hundreds of thousands of credit card data from their customers? Anybody remember how that hacker got in? HVAC. That's right. That's how LAUSD went down as well. So they don't necessarily come straight for your ed tech tool. They might come in, you know how you can't control the heat or air in your teaching space? Everybody knows that, right? Okay. Those systems are not always up to date either, and we're working on those too. That's those non-instructional apps. So it is normal in a hacking situation, right, that the infiltrator comes in through a system that doesn't necessarily have the data they want, but they sit dormant for a while. I think the average time that hackers, or I don't forget the lingo, Eric, but that a person is in the system and will lay dormant for 30 to 60 days before they'll actually have any executable. And then they move, once they're in the system, to other systems that do have data that is profitable for them. So you can't just think about the apps that have the, we hear teachers all the time say, yeah, but there's no student data housed in it. This one should be fine. No. Okay, that actually is more concerning, kind of like the free apps in many ways. So when you hear those things, I want you to start to think critically about what they're saying, because Lisa's right. everything costs something. It either costs dollars or data, right? Okay.
You also may have been aware that when you are able to purchase something, and because the conditionally allowed status, you have been allowed to renew some things. Your bookkeeper or secretary has to fill out this form. This form is a finance department form. So you don't have to send it to us. I really can't answer any questions about it, but I do want to point out, we recently added a tile on the DRPL main page that says how. And that button links to the finance procedures and how you purchase things. And it's documents that are maintained by the finance department. So please let your bookkeepers or whoever is doing that paperwork know that that button has been added to that DRPL splash page. That was at the request of the finance department. We were like, absolutely, because you have a lot of questions. It's very complicated. And I want to make sure that when you are able to renew, that you can actually get through. But you'll notice that the form, finance has been a great partner for us. Believe it or not, the DRPL process has been around for 6, 7 years, believe it or not. It was never enforced. But our friends in finance said, oh, well, we can fix that. We won't let any money go through unless it's approved.
Hey, can you talk about PTAs and P cards?
Oh, yes. Well, do you want to say?
No, sure. This is a question you probably are going to get if you haven't already. Okay, but what if my PTA purchases it? What's the answer there? No. Right? PTA gives the money to Fund 6, your school purchases it, and then it has to go through DRPL, right? Because it is student data, our systems, all of those sorts of things. What about, can my administrator now run out and use that P card he has for my software? Finance will not allow that anymore. Okay, so they are helping us keep our systems safe. So those are things that are a little bit different than they were 3 or 4 years ago.
The help desk is not just for things that are broken. If you have a question, please submit it to the help desk. It is the fastest way to get an answer. You saw my dream team. We're managing like 20 different queues. If you email us, I can't guarantee it's once it gets scrolled down to the bottom, no answer. But Sharewell will nag the death out of us. So we will get you an answer at some point. So please, if you have a question and you're getting ready to purchase something, you're not really, in fact, I think we have one in the queue right now that was asking about that. If you're not sure if it's something that has to be in DRPL, please send it to the help desk. It'll come into our queue. We will give you the real answer because
and if you ask me, I'm going to ask them anyway.
Either Megan or myself personally answer those tickets. So that's really, really important, and we do want to help you. Yeah. So another item that's on that DRPL splash page links to this document. Can this product be used or purchased? And it uses the example of Blogger, because Blogger actually has a restriction in their terms of use that you must be 13 years or older. So when you see restrictions like that, we're not pulling that out of the air. That is what the vendor is saying. Sometimes it's 18. Does anybody know why they choose 13? Why that cutoff, all of a sudden? It's okay if you don't. There's some federal laws that only apply to kids under 13. So 13 is the magic number if they don't want to deal with some of the federal laws protecting student privacy. That's why. Maybe nothing wrong with the tool, may not even be a risk, but they don't want to deal with it. The other issue we have are tools that were not designed for students. A lot of our CTE stuff, those tools were not designed for students. They're not architected that way. The terms and all that are written for adults. Those are their own challenge that we have to work through. But keep in mind that that is its own little piece of pain in our world, because we know that CTE has to use those tools. But we have to find a way to make them safe, and that's what we kind of work through to kind of find that happy medium, to let them use the tools they need, but also keep the kids safe. So you can always refer the teachers to that document. The other thing I want to make sure you understand is when you go into DRPL and you search for something, you get a little tile. It's really important that you mouse over the tile and click Details. Details is where you get all the good stuff. So here's an example with GimKit. You'll see it's allowed with conditions, and then to the right of GimKit, you see that G. That's a badge. There are some other badges in the bottom right that you can see. Those are just some of the quick, easy ones. So that badge means you must use Sign In with Google for that tool. That means we looked at the tool, and the only safe way to use it is to use Sign In with Google. The tool may allow you to use it in a different way, but it's only approved to be used with Sign In with your Wake County Google account. We're not approving that the kid creates their own account or the teacher creates the account or any of those things. So it's really important for you to look at those badges and understand what they mean. Some of the badges will be things like magnet schools only. If you're not in a magnet school, you cannot buy that tool. Magnet schools have a specialized curriculum. They're trying to draw people to their schools with their special curriculum. We offer it all over the place. It's no longer special. The other thing is you're going to want to scroll to the bottom when you're looking at those details. There's a section called Resources. Anything that we have looked at over the last few years, and we've reviewed and denied it, there is a reason. It will say reason for denial. There also will be conditions. So one of the statuses is recommended with conditions and allowed with conditions. So the condition might be, it's for 13 and up. It requires Sign In with Google. It's only for whatever curriculum, but you need to read the conditions as well. And again, the tool may allow you to do it in multiple ways. It is only approved in the way that we say that it is to be used. And that is for the safety of our systems, students, data, all the things.
That's it.
All
right.
Yep.
That's the last one.
All right.
All right. So as Lisa said, and we've got about 10 minutes that we can do questions. We'll do the best we can to give you answers today. But as Lisa said, remember that the folks at the help desk are your friends. And it's not to be ugly or anything like that, but I want to give you a different reason to use the help desk, not just for DRPL questions, but honestly for all your questions. We have some of our ISTs and IST leaders in the back. Will you guys wave at us? All right. They're amazing. And you've heard me say, please don't tack on 5 tickets just because you see Zach walk in the door, right? Oh my God, the IST's here. Let me put in some more tickets, right? When you do that to them, it makes it hard for them to plan their day. It's kind of rude, right? But that's not actually the reason I really want you to use the help desk. Here's why I want you to use the help desk instead, and make sure you have tickets in instead of just asking them, hey, while you're here, would you also look at this? The state expectation is that we have one IST for every 3,000 or so devices, all right? In Wake County, that is one IST for about every 8,000 devices, folks. We are grossly understaffed according to the state's expectations. When you just ask them and then it doesn't get logged or whatever, I have no record of it. And I cannot advocate for more ISTs if the data does not show that. And in the same way, right, if you send us all those questions about DRPL, or you send us, if they're all coming through email, there's no way for us to track it. So this is almost like a project management tool for us, right? So when we go to advocate so that we get more help, so we can give you more help, right? I have added, 9 ISTs to the team in the last 3 years. It's working. Help me, help you, right? If you will use the help desk, right, and put in those tickets that way, we can get you faster responses. I had an IST whom I love, right, emailed me directly and called me the other day. There was a cyber emergency. One of his teachers had been hacked, right? Y'all, I was in a meeting. It was 3 hours before I got back to I'm not checking email right now, right? And it was urgent, but he wasted an hour and a half waiting for me to call him back. He finally got through to the help desk, and Eric Hoth was in his car in 20 minutes going to get the laptop, right? When you go through the help desk, we have a team of folks who direct those tickets and those calls to the person that can help you the fastest and has the best knowledge, regardless of the issue. So I know sometimes it feels like an extra step, and I recognize that sometimes it feels impersonal, and Lisa will tell you she fusses at me all the time, and I'm like, yeah, but Lauren called me, and can you just do this? And Lisa's like, tell them to put in a help desk ticket, right? I'm guilty too, I really am. But it's very helpful for us if you can put those in that way for a myriad of reasons. We can help you faster, we can get you the best answer quicker, and we can advocate for more additional help.